Drucis ends off UFC 305 with submitting Israel Adesanya in the 4th round via rear naked choke. I'm going to talk more about this fight near the tail end of the video because I want to go over the main card because the main card was beautiful. Loved it. This was a pretty good main card. Upsets and all, I have a few gripes with the main card, but overall, I think it was worth the money. Drucis shuts down the haters and beats Israel Adesanya in a perfect pick'em fight. This really was Drucis day to let it be known that a new era in middleweight has begun, and it is the era of the South African. Captain South Africa is here to stay. Okay, let's get into this main card, alright. Overall, outside of a few upsets, I'm actually very happy with this card. Jingliang versus Carlos Prates. Performance of the night, 100% needed, okay? I picked Carlos to win this fight purely because I think Jingliang, coming off the injury that he did, and maybe this is going to come off as insensitive, Jingliang is very, very overrated. I'm sorry, he is. He lost to D-Rod, okay? To D-Rod. That guy is the benchmark journeyman. If you can't beat D-Rod, you don't have a future at welterweight. That is the brutal reality of it. You can dislike Ian Gary. Ian Gary destroyed D-Rod, and he has a future at welterweight. If you cannot beat D-Rod, I automatically think you are going to be slightly above can level for the entirety of your career. And I'm sorry, that's Jingliang. That's just a fact here. At this point, he is slightly above can level. And Carlos is just mean, bro. Carlos, I knew he was going to win based off the Radke performance, I'm going to be honest with you. I picked him to win this one, and I did predict it was going to end in a finish. Now, I said 3rd round, 2nd round. You know what? I'm not complaining. Clean. Okay? This man, outside of a few exchanges in the 1st round, was absolutely playing with Jingliang the entire fight. 1-2, slip on the outside, 1-2, slip on the outside, and then by the time that Jingliang just was kept on getting caught with that left straight over and over again, bro was just teeing off. There's a moment where he's just smiling at Lee because he realizes that he is just a separate skill level above him. Jingliang couldn't really do anything with the grappling. He was able to get him up against the cage momentarily. That stopped the onslaught, but outside of that, Carlos was going in there and taking names, man. I am very interested to see what goes on with Carlos in the welterweight division. Jingliang, I don't know. You're going to have to bump him down even further, and I don't know about the future of Lee. I mean, I already let my opinions be said. I think he's slightly above can level. Maybe you give him a can and we'll be happy about it. Tai Uso versus Jinzo Rosenswehr. Yup, rigged scorecard. Actually, that is a rigged scorecard. The fact that this was ruled a split has to be top 3 worst scorecards in MMA history. I was going to say top 10, but when I think about it some more, this is top 3. Watching this fight, okay, I didn't think there was a scenario where Tai Uso won a decision against Jinzo Rosenswehr, okay? Tai Uso's one and only chance at beating Jinzo was by KOing him. We could say that in hindsight. We all wanted the Sui. But Rosenswehr, okay. He beat Samil Gaziev. So right away, we have some momentum. Fighters with momentum tend to do better against fighters that don't have momentum. Except for downward momentum. Rosenswehr goes into there, has a game plan to be used. And to be fair with you, Tai Uso, grappling's mid, striking, he just has crazy power, that's the fact. He has a few good blitzes that he was having, doing a good job against Jinzo. Every single time Tai Uso had him up against the cage where he no longer could back up, that's when he would have his power punches. And he was landing less punches, but he was doing near the proportional amount of damage up until the 3rd round, where Rosenswehr easily took control of the 3rd round, which makes it even weirder that somebody scored at a 30-27. Yeah. The card was that bad. Understand, I tried in my head to think of a scenario where you could rule Tai Uso as the winner. Tai Uso, at absolute best, you could have given the 1st round to him. Because nothing really happened in the 1st round. The 2nd round was very clearly Rosenswehr, but 10-9. The 3rd round was the clearest round I have seen in favor of anybody in this fight. Rosenstreich every single way, all the way. But Tai Tuivasa somehow got ruled the winner 30-27. That means there was a judge that has a career in judging MMA fights that legitimately thought that Tai Tuivasa won every single round of that fight. That is a worse scorecard than somebody ruling Chito Vera beating Corey Sandhagen. This might be this is the worst scorecard I've seen in recent memory. Like, I think the Strickland versus Paulo Costa split decision scorecard is more understandable than this. This is just awful. Okay, Rosenstreich, where do I think we go from here? Sorry for the weird cut there. Where was I at? Okay, Jinzo Rosenswehr, where do we go from here? Heavyweight is in a really weird spot right now, okay? We got John Jones more or less taking time off. I've already talked about how I don't even think John Jones is going to fight Tom Aspinall. That's why I think the UFC is going into damage control here. I think Tom Aspinall needs to take care of some stuff up top. Now, do I think Rosenstreich is legitimately in title contention? No. I think you could do Rosenstreich versus, like, Tybura, maybe. Tai Tuivasa, I mean, it sounds dumb, but, like, I don't hate a Derek Lewis fight, like, at all. I don't hate a rematch of there because I don't think Derek Lewis is going to win a title. And at this point, Tai Tuivasa just needs to win. Give him either a can at heavyweight or give him Derek Lewis for a rematch. I legitimately don't care at this point for him. It's just sad. Mateus Gamrat versus Dan Hooker, another split decision. This one is infinitely more understandable because, like, when we went into the decision here, I didn't know what metric we were going to do this. Because if you went off control time, it was Mateus Gamrat. If you went off literally any other aspect of MMA, it was Dan Hooker. Like, when I say it like that, it sounds obvious, but, like, I think every single time we as a fan base, like, when we go into a decision versus, like, somebody who has control time versus somebody who is winning every other aspect of MMA, we have a very bad tendency to look at it through, the better lens of MMA. Like, everybody scored this for Dan Hooker. I picked Gamrat to win this fight, and when we go to the decision, I was like, I will be disappointed if they don't give this one to Dan. Like, to give you an idea of where I was so far. So I got Carlos right, I got Rosenstreich right, I got Mateus wrong. I picked Mateus Gamrat to beat Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker got this by a split decision. If I had to sum up this fight to you, Mateus Gamrat fought like Mateus Gamrat. Horrible striking, but Gamrat has power. Like, that's something that I realized. If I had to give credit to Gamrat really quick, Gamrat has weird power. Because there was a point in the first round where he clips Dan Hooker. Like, not even like a full clip. Like, it was the side of the head. And Dan Hooker legitimately dropped to a knee. Like, I thought he slipped, but no. Mateus Gamrat clipped him, but he just has zero striking IQ. Like, awful. His grappling's great. Like, I think his chain wrestling is awesome. Dan Hooker, before he was able to get a good sense of the grappling of Gamrat, was getting taken down, was getting held down, and that's where Gamrat was winning these rounds. But Dan Hooker, whenever they were on the feet, from the second round onto the third round, and so, okay, tail end of round one, the entirety of round two and the entirety of round three, the striking was dominated by Dan Hooker. I think Gamrat round one is fair. Round two is the 50-50 one. Round three is Dan Hooker all day. And everybody ruled it in favor of Dan Hooker because guess what? They got rid of the Tai Tuivasa judge. Thank goodness. Dan Hooker did enough to win, in my opinion. I know some people called this a robbery. First off, Gamrat fans exist. If I really had to be brutally honest here, where do I think this fight came down to? Mentality, bro. And I cringe to say that. But going into the third round, okay, let me give you an idea of the corner. I'm going to pretend to be Gamrat, and then I'm going to pretend to be Dan Hooker. And his coach. I'm Mateus Gamrat right now. Okay, Coach Gamrat, we really need to lock in here. You're going to have to do more with the grappling. Like, 1,000-yard stare, like, I don't want to be here anymore, boss. I don't want to do this. And then we go to Dan Hooker. I fucking love this, man. This guy has nothing for me. Every single time that I'm striking with this guy, he just goes in to grab my crotch. Like, I'm winning this fight on every other metric. It's just a matter of these judges are going to give it to me. The difference in mentality from Soy Boy Gamrat to Giga Chad Dan Hooker, CTE Dan Hooker, with all the ink in the world, okay? I've noticed something. MMA fighters, when they reach the tail end of their career, they get a shit ton of tattoos, and then they say that they're just getting started. It is the weirdest thing. But I want you to think about that. Every single time that an MMA fighter gets a absolute ungodly amount of tattoos where they didn't have tattoos before, they are trying to do a rebrand. That's just how it is. And Dan Hooker wins this by mentality. But he's gonna get KO'd. I'm sorry, that's just how it is. Dan Hooker, Charles Oliveira. Dan Hooker, Charles, I don't care. That is the fight to make. Mateus Gamrat, I don't care. Like, honestly, man, this is the first time I've ever picked Mateus Gamrat to win a fight. Mateus Gamrat, I don't care anymore, man. Dan Hooker, Charles, though, let's go. KaraFrance versus Steve Erceg. This one hurt my soul. I got this one wrong, too, so right now I'm 2-2. Not a great sewing for my prediction ability. But KaraFrance gets it done against Steve Erceg. Like, I'm salty because I sound salty because I am salty. Okay, like, dunk on me in the comment section. Steve Erceg, I thought, was going to have the striking IQ to keep this at distance. But when you're playing a game of centimeters from getting KO'd, and KaraFrance does something even slightly different, like when he's blitzing forward, he ended with an overhand, and it puts you unconscious because you're blocking like this. Yeah, that's what happens. You get KO'd horrifically, and you lose the vast majority of your hype. Like, I'm gonna be honest with you. Steve Erceg, all the hype that he generated from the Pantoja fight has effectively been erased by the Like, we're back to square one right now, which is so sad. KaraFrance versus Pantoja, I guess. I mean, that's where we are in the flyweight division, bro. You get one good win over somebody that's ranked in the top 10, you can instantly get a title shot. Muhammad Mokaev's gone. Gone. Yeah. KaraFrance is going to be fighting Pantoja. That's just how it's going to play out. That's how this division plays because, nobody cares. Steve Erceg, Amir Albazi, maybe. That would be kind of cool. I'm sorry I'm not hyped, but this legitimately bummed me out. Performance of the night bonus? Yeah. I think it's fair to give it to KaraFrance. That was a great... I'm even though I'm salty, I got it wrong. Give him the 50K bonus, Dana, please. And now we're on to the main event. Israel Adesanya ended as a favorite. Okay, don't think I didn't notice he changed his flag again to Nigeria. I'm sorry, like, you weren't having some crazy, like, Mandela effect. Israel Adesanya legitimately changed his flag again to Nigeria. Okay? Every single time it becomes convenient for Israel Adesanya to change his country, like his flag for that of which he represents, to either Nigeria or New Zealand. He started off his career with Nigeria, and then he did New Zealand. And then he changed it to Nigeria again when he fought Robert Whittaker, because part of the buildup of that fight is Israel Adesanya was giving Robert Whittaker shit for representing Australia when he was born in New Zealand. I'm not kidding you, that was a real thing. So Israel Adesanya, to not get called out, changed his country to Nigeria. And then he went back to New Zealand. New Zealand for the entire, like, all the time. And then, when we go into the Drucis fight, he changed it again to Nigeria, because part of the beef here is Drucis du Plessis is hitting Israel Adesanya with the very same tactic that Adesanya used against Robert Whittaker. That is why I am screaming BS whenever Israel Adesanya wants to say, oh, well, Drucis did this. Brother, you did the same thing against Robert Whittaker, and people cheered you for it. Don't be mad when Drucis hits you with the very same thing, because yes, you did throw away the country that you were representing. Like, Adesanya, all you had to do was say, yeah, no, I love the Nigerian people, but I made New Zealand my home. Like, I'm sorry, like this, you made this a way bigger deal than it ever was because this was part of your marketing. That's just how it is. Drucis du Plessis, Captain South Africa. Like, to give you an idea, I talked about it in the video I made at like 1 o'clock last night. How the timeline has shifted. There was a time where people picked Darren Till to beat Drucis. And not just that. Darren Till was praised and Drucis du Plessis was booed as a guy who was never going to amount to anything. I'm not going to lie to you. I was not a day one Drucis fan. Drucis slowly won me over by the fact that he just slowly climbed, bro. Like, Drucis du Plessis really did make a mountain out of just a few people that believed in him. Drucis du Plessis, Darren Till, wasn't the favorite. Beats Darren Till. They did not think, when he went into the Robert Whittaker fight, they did not think he was going to beat Robert Whittaker. You want to know how I know that? Because there was an article that was published in April where Israel Adesanya that he plans on fighting Robert Whittaker in Sydney, Australia. That was in October? Yeah, it was either September or October. I'm sorry if I get the month wrong. And at that point, Drucis versus Robert Whittaker didn't happen yet. This was months prior. Adesanya knew he was going to fight in Sydney. And then Drucis beats Robert Whittaker. He is the first person in MMA history to beat Robert Whittaker and Israel Adesanya. Again, think about that. Beats that. Breaks his hand. Can't make it to Sydney. So they get Strickland. We understand what happened with the whole Strickland thing. That is a story in and of itself. But yeah, that's how it happened. Short notice, Strickland beats Israel Adesanya. And then Dana White says that Drucis du Plessis has to win 3 more fights to get a chance to fight Israel Adesanya. I remember that. You can find the soundbite. There's an interview. It's still on the UFC's channel. I'm telling you, dude, it is crazy. And it wasn't until the entirety of the MMA fan base and MMA YouTube came together and lobbied for Drucis, because I'm sorry, if you beat Robert Whittaker, you're instantly fighting for a title. I don't care. You broke your hand, whatever. And then Drucis vs. Strickland was made. Now, understand, at the time, I thought Strickland won. Now, if you were to ask me now, who do I think won? I would say, I don't care. Drucis, in my mind, did enough to be ruled the winner, but Strickland also did enough to be ruled the winner. Do I think it was a robbery? No! I have to clarify that because people think I think it's a robbery. No, I have never, in my entire time of talking about this fight, ever called it a robbery. It's a close fight. But Drucis du Plessis was ruled the winner. And then we make Adesanya. I'm just catching you up on this lore, bro. Because Drucis lore is honestly peak cinema. Drucis du Plessis, throughout this entire time, is getting dragged through the mud, being called all types of names. Ariel Helwani had that scummy interview with Drucis, awful interview, where he kind of framed Drucis as some type of, like he made Drucis seem like one of the worst types of human beings imaginable, talking about how, oh, you just don't like Israel Adesanya, he can't represent this continent. Like, well, okay. Stop, chill. It was never a race thing. It was about representing your country. And Drucis is the better representative of South Africa than Adesanya is of Nigeria. That's just a fact. It is what it is. Then he goes in. He lobbies for an Africa fight, okay? They want Drucis to headline UFC 300 against Israel Adesanya. This is confirmed by Adesanya on the Theo Von podcast. And then Drucis says no. He doesn't want to do 300. He wants to bring the belt to South Africa. And then the UFC threatens an interim title fight if Drucis doesn't defend the belt at Perth. Drucis says, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to beat Israel Adesanya, and then I'm going to defend the title again in South Africa. So Drucis versus Israel Adesanya is booked. Drucis walks out to the arena, okay? Is booed. Horrifically booed. This man came into Perth, Australia as one of the most hated champions I have ever seen. This is the same continent that booed Israel Adesanya against Strickland. And they booed Drucis more than that. So Drucis walks in there. Nothing about his camp. Like, it really is an inspiring thing. Like, there's just nothing else to say about it. Also, Drucis walks in with, like, top 10, like, most hot, like, white wives of a fighter. Like, bro, I take back what I said about Drucis with the mustache thing. There's clearly something that Drucis has That's working. Holy crap, bro. Drucis walks in, booed, goes into the first round. Narrowly. It goes either way. People that are saying that Israel Adesanya won every single round up to that point, brother, you are glazing so hard. I would say Israel Adesanya was winning the fight up to there, but Drucis was finding his openings. In the second round, Drucis Duplessis is able to not only take down Adesanya, but almost get a finish with the very same rear naked choke that he ended up ending the fight with. And I was amazed because Drucis had his forearm underneath the chin of Adesanya, but was off-center with the rear naked choke, and Adesanya was able to rotate. Like, when I saw that, I immediately thought to myself, if Drucis does not gas out, he is going to either TKO Adesanya on the ground or submit him. My immediate thought after the second round, the only way Adesanya wins this is if he can keep this standing. Because I'll also say this, Drucis, head movement, 0. Like, bro was getting lit up. I have to give Adesanya credit on this. When he found his timing, he was lighting up Drucis. Like, nobody's saying that Drucis was winning the striking exchanges. He had a few good flurries at the end of the rounds, but at the end of the day, I would favor an Adesanya. But then, Drucis, right when I think it's going downhill in the fourth round, I think he lost the fourth round. Drucis gets the takedown, takes his back, sinks in a beautiful rear naked choke, and boom, tap. Beautiful. Cinema is made. Drucis Duplessis is still and is the true middleweight champion of the world with finishing Israel Adesanya. Not just beating Adesanya, not just finishing Adesanya, but ushering in a new era in the middleweight division. Like, we've seen this happen. Leon Edwards beating Kamaru Usman. Ilia Topuria beating Volkanovski. Drucis Duplessis beating Israel Adesanya is going to be one of those era-changing moments. A passing of the guard. Drucis Duplessis is the new champion. And I'll be honest with you. As a Strickland fan, I favor Drucis in the rematch. I think when Drucis finds his timing, he's winning. That's just how it is. I think if you're going to beat Drucis, you're going to have to beat him early because he is a horrible starter. Let me just say that. Drucis is such a bad starter. But, dude, great fight. I know there's some talk about Drucis Duplessis fighting Alex Pereira. I don't like it. I don't like Alex Pereira going down. I don't like it. It's a built-in excuse, and it's a valid excuse. I'm sorry. I would be impressed if Alex Pereira could even make 185 again. Israel Adesanya, I'm not sure what we're going to do from here, but I think the move to make for Drucis. Drucis, lobby for a South Africa card fighting Strickland in the main event, okay? And if the UFC wants to get behind it with Pereira, then fight Pereira at light heavyweight. You'll go for a double champ fight because the UFC is going to force an interim between the winner of Robert Whittaker and Khamzat Chimaev against literally anybody. But I'm telling you, Drucis, lobby for the Strickland fight and try to get it in South Africa. The UFC will accommodate. Great fight, though. Love it. Overall, pretty good card. Worth the money. Drucis Duplessis is still the middleweight champion of the world. And I'm very interested to see where this new era of middleweight takes us. Well, great card. Thank you for anybody who tunes into my channel. It means the absolute most to me. And I will see you all next time. Adios.